Yeah, I mean, we were born confident, when we came out, we didn't have all of these beliefs about ourselves, or oh, we're not good enough. And, getting up and trying to walk 50 or 60 times before we could actually stand. We didn't sort of punch ourselves in the face after trying 10 times. Say, oh, forget
Yes.
it, you're never going to walk. Forget it, you're not good enough. We just kept going. And I think as life moves on and part of being human, we pick up all sorts of stuff that limits us. I mean, I'm sure it was very difficult to learn to walk, and yet there are far more things in life that are less difficult that we were like, oh, I just can't do that, and actually we can. There are so many things we can do. And just touching on the fight or flight, this is something that often happens in high stakes situations, where either job interviews or in the cabin, where we're trying to make a really good impression because we want the job and all of the things that will mean for us in general. So when we're in high stakes situations, the fight or flight will happen quite quickly. And this is where we completely disconnect from ourselves. We go all into our heads and think, what do I need to do? Oh my God, I need to get this right. And this is or in an interview, or this is what I have to say. And is it what they want to hear? And it's almost like we're speaking this language, this incredible language, of very rich language of being ourselves. And then when we go into our heads, it's like we're running it through this filter and trying to turn it into a completely different foreign language, and then expecting it to land with the other person. And it feels like a massive disconnect. And part of what I teach is that actually, we can function in a very different way. And when we do, because that's something that I really nailed in the cabin, not so much in real life, but that is getting so much better now that everything is up leveling. But this is where the relationships in real life were struggling, like love relationships. But cabin relationships are just easy. And I'm like, look, this is what needs to happen. But it's just the same. I place those things in my personal life with high stakes, and therefore that's where I was getting stuck. This stuff, not so much. So it's about when we make something really matter, and we place a massive amount of pressure on ourselves, and not realizing that we actually are, when we're really tuned into our full selves and we operate from that place, and it's magical what can happen. And I also find it interesting that I can see, people saying, oh, I need to learn body language for the cabin. No, we don't, because actually when we are thinking, oh, well, I need to do this, to influence my body language, or I should do this because when we are really connected to ourselves, our body language automatically is so right. Everything flows from that place. So it's kind of just going back to the core, which we're just not used to doing. We're used to thinking through, and it's got to be like this, and it's exhausting as well. It is exhausting. Right. And then in job interviews, even, it's exhausting for the interviewer. And I know in the cabin, it just feels like a disconnect, where we might do all of the right things with all of our fancy skills. And like one of my colleagues in the industry, although she had these beautiful butler skills, she'd invested a great deal of money in, the client just said, she just doesn't feel right. And that was after a few months. The wow factor skills got her the job. And then as time went on, just within a few months, the client said she just doesn't feel right. And I thought, what does that even mean? And why do I feel right? And it was, as I say, this whole journey has just helped me to really understand that, to teach that. But it's just because I don't see it as a high stakes situation. I actually really enjoy being there. That gets me more into myself. And therefore, everything that comes from that, I can totally trust it. Even when it might be a brand new experience, whatever comes, it's like, oh, great. And in fact, this was a role where I tipped a whole foil of food on the floor. I was on my third freelance with this client, obviously very high expectations as always. And I had the galley door open. I managed to tip the food on the floor in full view of the client. And what then followed, how I dealt with it, I didn't really think about it. It was an automatic thing. And by the time I'd done it, I thought, oh, wow, that was so fast. And I thought, okay, let's just recompose myself, start again. Went back into the cabin. And then how I dealt with it. And then how that made the client feel. And really where we need to replicate a feeling of home, calm and safety, that's what was created. And it was that made the client say, Heidi, come and work for me permanently. I'm thinking, I've just tipped your food on the floor. I mean, I didn't say that, but, I'm thinking that. And I thought, and this again was something that turned everything upside down as to what I thought was really important. I'd always thought the cabin's, this elegant service. And of course we need that because, that they are the expectations, but that alone often isn't enough. It's just not enough. There has to be this feeling that we create no matter what happens, even if we tip a load of food on the floor. And as I say, I was offered a role, not from my wow factor skills, but from how I dealt with a difficult situation because it made the client feel safe. And conversely, the other lady was employed for her wow factor skills, but then was fired because she didn't feel right. And I thought, God, this is huge, but I didn't understand what it was at the time. And luckily, that's what I've really been studying.
Yeah. I think you've touched on exactly what I feel, no pun intended. But at the end of the day, it goes back. We were talking about it before. I was just thinking about the law of sympathetic resonance. I'm not sure people will understand that. If you put two violins next to each other and you pluck one of the strings, the other string will ring as well. So it's that usual stuff as when you go into a party, your energy is negative. Well, it's going to create negative energy around, isn't it? So we say, well, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And then it puts us in a bad mood. So it's, the emotionally healthy individual, which you're very much geared towards and very much I'm geared towards, is how do I free myself up from the anxiety, the uncertainties, the fears, the doubts, the emotional exposure in order to give myself the capacity to enjoy life, to feel calm, safe, relaxed, harmonious, contented, fulfilled, etc., etc. And that will automatically pass on to other people around. And there may be some who are so full of resentment, so full of bitterness or damage from past that they can't cope with that. They're resentful, perhaps. The fact that we feel more confident, I found that the more I get confident, the more I trigger other people because they've piled on the layers on top of that confidence, as you talked about the starts of the young age. This armor. Brené Brown talks about it, about the armor, being armored. Basically, you can't move around. Classic thing, an armored soldier goes very slowly, so they're a very easy target. And the person who takes off the armor can run around and move incredibly quickly. And I'd much prefer to be the lean person, mind and body, who can adapt and swerve and just adjust to any environment, really. But I don't think it's possible unless we learn the emotional language. We learn to be aware of how we're feeling, put some language into it, and to be able to articulate it well.
Yeah, and I think that really, I just got this feeling of sort of that movement and it's like being able to go with the flow. And to me, being able to go with the flow is where, we're connected to that part of ourselves and we can then tune into what's needed in that moment. We can see the big picture. Because what I find is that many of us, because it's a high stakes situation, we don't want to screw it up, we don't want to lose our jobs, or we want to get the job. And we come with so much stress, as well as that elegant toolkit. We have so much stress that comes with it. And especially in the small microclimate of the cabin or a small environment like in an interview, it can really be felt. And it just, and like you said with the fight or flight, with that stress, because, our brains are wired in a way that, when we were feeling at stress, it was probably because we were going to be eaten. We'd have to save our lives. Our body reacts in that way even now. So even in the cabin, what will happen is that we'll feel stress. And if we can't counteract that stress builds up and then these blinkers come on to help us find the fastest escape route. All the energy goes to our muscles so we can run. All of our creativity goes out of the window, and all of our being able to think outside the box, which we need in those moments, it's gone. And being able to run for the fastest escape route doesn't help us either. And then we're like, and then it just gets worse and worse. And it's such a shame, because people shouldn't, it's a shame when people end up in that situation. It's really just being able to navigate through that, navigate through the interview, being able to counteract this stuff, and also know what it feels like to show up authentically. And authenticity creates trust. People can feel when you're being genuine and when you're trying to bullshit people. It's a thing people can feel, and it creates a great deal of trust when we can get to that place. But most of us think, if I reveal the real me, all hell's going to break loose. But actually, the real us is very connected to the absolute best of ourselves, that only has the best intention for ourselves anyway. So we can't screw it up. There's nothing to actually fear. But most of us do fear, the real me, I've also got this going on and that going on, and people don't want to see that. But actually, that isn't the real us. It's just aspects of our personality. But when we connect to the real, like the deeper element of us, and we take that into an interview or that into a cabin or any situation in life, it's mind-blowing what can be created, what comes from that. It truly is.
And I see it really is.
And again.
Yeah, it really is. I think, again, it comes back to the honesty. Are we really being honest with ourselves? And I've always thought myself as a very honest person, but I know I'm not, because my subjective personality, or the identity that's been piled on top of each other, it's hiding my real honesty there. I'm trying to create something. I'm trying to come across in a certain way to other people so that I don't get rejected. But is that really we talk about the authentic self or whatever, but it's actually just intrinsically honest. I study the spiritual side of things as well. Is you've got to strip down the identity. Everything that's happened is just psychological garbage, all nonsense that's piled on top of each other. Once we strip ourselves away and just realize that we're all part of the same system, we're soil. Everything that exists is part of soil. We borrowed our bodies from the ground. We are a being. And it's nothing to do with whether we're girls, boys, black, white, foreigners, locals or whatever. None of it matters. At the end of the day, how do we free ourselves up from the restrictions of identity, which we don't understand? And what are we trying to do? It's setting that goal ahead, isn't it? I want to have for me personally, I want to have the biggest impact I can on the planet in the short period of time, to be able to just support other people to find the very best in themselves, because I feel that it's disgraceful. The lack of human potential, the waste of human capacity is just absolutely disgraceful in my mind. And that means I have to go out there and do some bloody hard work to unravel what's holding me back, to become, the very best Ben that there is, or being that there is, so that I can then encourage other people to do that. And we have to be resilient, of course, which is something that the old, what was it described as grit or character in the old days, but resilience is really important. Is when you drop that tray of stuff, when you bang the aeroplane down, when we have a fight with our partner, when we get divorced, which you and I have both done, either we go away and play the victim, or we come up with what you said earlier was a creative opportunity. And so we get outside of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight and flight, and we really concentrate on the parasympathetic system of rest and digest. I love that saying. Is like, okay, we're going to rest now, because that is how I'm going to be creative to come up with a solution to this issue. And that's really exciting. And to be excited by the uncertainty, to be excited by the emotional exposure, put ourselves in the position of discomfort, knowing that when we're in an argument with somebody and we're feeling a bit unsure and wanting to be defensive, thinking, actually, this is really interesting. I'm learning something here, and not to be ashamed of it, because the only real shame, I think, in life is the waste of human potential, not because we're not good enough. We are all intrinsically good enough, and we have to set that goal way ahead of ourselves, thinking we just are on this incredible journey. It's going to be bumpy, it's going to be painful, but there's a beautiful sunrise on the other side. There's a beautiful destination, and we're going to just keep going until the day we leave. And then who knows when we leave this planet, where we're going from there. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So we might as well make it a good ride where we are, and just, see where it's going. And I just think, if life isn't going the way we want it right now. We have the power to change it. And why not? What can we lose? What have we got to lose, really? There isn't anything. Because if we're going down the wrong path anyway, we might as well switch to a different one, because we know the destination of that one. Otherwise, it would be as they say, the definition of insanity, going down the same route and expecting something to change. So, I've seen it for myself a lot. I've definitely been on that wrong path a lot. But
yeah. Likewise, but we're learning the lesson, and when we connect in this way, a connection as an inclusivity in a world that you see exclusive this and exclusive that everywhere, it's such a negative message. We've got to be there. We've got to say, I'll admit, listen, I'm a bloke. I'm conditioned to be the alpha male that can go out and solve all the problems, but I can't at all. I get bloody emotional about stuff. I get angry, I get cross, I get that feeling resentment comes in, and why are you treating me like this? And I think I've got to go away and do something about that. Who am I going to reach out to? I'll talk to someone like you who understands the situation. What do you think, Heidi? Or lots of lovely friends that I'm meeting around the world who just perhaps have a think about this, Ben. Okay, all right, off we go. And normally I think there's that saying, isn't it? We look for, when we're looking for advice, we're usually looking for an accomplice. In other words, you want somebody to tell you you're right, and when they don't, it's like, well, sod you anyway. So, but that's exclusive. We're exclusive. We've got to be in that discomfort. Really, that's where freedom is about, isn't it? Confidence is about freedom. Inclusivity is about freedom, and life just becomes just incredible.
Yeah, and I try to, I do get caught up in my own stuff sometimes too, but I think just having the awareness with the amount of work I've done, I don't stay in it as long. So it's not that I don't experience that stuff. It's not that I don't experience lack of confidence, but it's like, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to stay in that. It's not going to keep me stuck, because it might last an hour rather than days like it used to, or weeks, especially, or months as it did in COVID. So now it will actually, I'll be able to get through that quite quickly. So it won't actually hold me back. And I think then what I've also become more aware of is when I'm feeling off in myself, it's a reminder that I've stepped away from myself and I've gotten into the whole thoughts about things that are never super helpful. So we've just got to come back to ourselves, because that's where, it's being in that true aspect of ourselves is where everything is really great, and we've just piled stuff on top. And it's just that reminder that, a bad feeling isn't that our lives are suddenly going to shit. It's just that, we've just stepped away from ourselves. That's all it is. We can come back to this so quickly and at any time. It's not some elusive thing, you've got to go off and go to some monastery for it. It's just, it's there in all of us, because it is actually who we are. We were born this way. And I think life is just peeling off those layers to get back to it, really.
Yeah.
And we can come back to that place quite quickly. It's not some elusive thing that, you've got to go off to some monastery and study this or remove yourself from society. That's the biggest part. Life happens around us as human beings. We've got all sorts of challenges, and and I remember back in the day, I used to be, it'd be so easy to be so relaxed if I didn't live in London. But actually, that's part of the challenge. If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. And that's part of the, if we make things super easy for ourselves, it doesn't help us to grow. So if we can get through those challenges, whatever they are, that's what actually helps us to grow. And even when I'm working with people and they say, if I do a couple of sessions, will I be confident? And I'll say, well, you'll have the tools to tap into confidence, but this is a practice ongoing. Confidence is a muscle. And it's a bit like reading a confidence book and expecting to feel confident. It's not going to do that. You will have the knowledge of confidence, but you won't actually be or feel confident. You just have the knowledge. The getting to that place is putting it into practice, especially where it feels like a challenge, because it's like lifting heavy weights is a challenge, but that's what changes the muscle. So where we're putting those techniques into practice, especially in times where it feels like a challenge, that confidence muscle really grows. And I think that's probably how mine grew so much. And of course, I'm on a lifelong journey with this, but that it felt like such a whole body makeover during COVID. Every muscle was tested to the max, wherein I thought they're going to snap, but I just kept going and kept going. And I think, as I say, it was such a blessing. And, I feel like when challenges come up for many people, especially that I'm working with, I'm like, look, this is just temporary, and I'll also talk about, look, here are all the challenges I've pushed through, just in my career, never mind my whole life. But I've bust through so many things that, people were like, oh, that's just not possible. Oh, you're 48. Oh, they're only looking for somebody that's 30. And I've still gotten the job anyway. And it's just, it's like, whatever I hear, I'm like, yeah, you can push through this stuff because I've done it. I've absolutely done it. And it is possible. So I'm grateful for having had all of those challenges and having bust through them so that I can share that and, help other people with that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the mindset that I completely align with or agree with you, is that knowing that each challenge is a wonderful opportunity to create something better. We have no idea what our capacity is, but if we go down that adventure of thinking, I just want to see, when I feel as though I've topped up, I need to go away and get some good sleep. I need to eat better. I need to get some exercise in. I need to reach out to the people that can support me. I need to read a book, do the training. And I think, as you said, we work in a world of constant training in aviation, both if you're a flight attendant or pilots, we're constantly being trained. But at the end of the day, until we actually put ourselves in the arena and we can log the experience up, we never know how we're going to operate. And there's going to be some tricky situations. We're going to drop the tray. We're going to make the mistakes. But that's all, that triggers the emotion. Effectively, the mistakes trigger the emotion. And what teaches us the best? Emotion, both the negative emotion and the positive emotion. That's the thing we remember. We build on that. Thank you very much for making me feel, this opportunity. Thank you very much for making me feel terrible and worthless and useless. Well, there's a message. Even depression is a great message. There's something, the signal message to clear. This is the whole thing about emotional intelligence, is it's now time to go away and address that, really. I mean, you just come across as somebody who is constantly looking for the amazing experiences in life and never resting when, even in the good times, and you can't, we got to keep going because life is incredible. I mean, and you're very humble, as I said at the beginning. And I think that's a really important message. You seem to have achieved an awful lot on TV, but you're also such a humble and grateful individual.
Thanks so much. Thank you. I think just, I've always sort of excited about, I get sort of really fired up about things, and I've just learned to trust that's the guiding post. It's like, that's the compass, really. I don't really know where it's heading, to be honest. But you said, if I limit it with my own possible thinking about it, I'm like, well, I might as well just not even think about it at all, but just know that I'm following the feeling, and it's that inner guidance. I've learned to trust it so much now. There've been so many times in my life when I haven't followed it, and I've really kicked myself. But it's been a very loud kind of voice and a very loud, very clear signpost to follow it. And I just haven't, because my mind has taken over and said, oh, that's a load of rubbish and don't be silly. And, that innate inner wisdom and intelligence is very alive in each and every one of us. And again, the more we come back to ourselves, the more we will tune into that. And the more we trust it, it builds the confidence in trusting ourselves, which massively builds our confidence. And we feel so much more fulfilled that actually we don't have to give all our power to everybody externally. We really can trust ourselves. And that feels so bloody good, It feels really good. And I mean, I think the first time when it was something bad that was going to happen, when I was 9, I had no concept of any of this stuff. I barely remembered my own name half the time, But I remember being at the beach with my sister, And I was a bit of a horrible older sister, to be honest. I was always kind of playing tricks and things. And I remember at the beach, and there was this massive, kind of huge sort of chunk of seaweed. It was, I don't know, about 20 feet wide or something ridiculous. But it was all sort of brown and, tendrily, and didn't look nice. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny to pick up my sister and throw her into it? It was horrible, right? And I went, and something stopped me. It was like, no. And it was almost like something was pushing me back. And I had no concept of what that could possibly be, but there was something in me that was like, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'll never forget it to this day. And then the next day in the newspaper, because it was before days of internet, they reported this huge Portuguese man of war, deadly jellyfish, which was what I'd seen, that I was going to throw my sister on. But something stopped me, because I genuinely thought it was seaweed. It looked like seaweed. Where does that come from? And then again, later in life, when I was buying my first property, I was buying a property in Dubai, and I was really caught up in desperation. I was like, I'm desperate to buy something. As soon as I got a mortgage, ran out the door and put a check down on, a property. And it was just constant desperation down. I need to buy. And I remember by the time I got to the estate agent's office, I was about to sign for the property. And, the bank manager was there with the mortgage, the owner, the seller was there, the estate agent, all these people around me. And I had the paper there about to sign. And something, I don't know what the heck it was, but it was like, it was a punch in my stomach. And I actually thought, oh. And it felt really off. And I had this thought of, this feels off. And then rather than follow it, all of this fear stuff kicked in. What will they think of me? They're going to think I'm wasting their time. Oh, that 30 grand deposit I've put down, I'm going to lose that. And blah, blah, and all of this stuff. And I thought, stuff, whatever that was, just going to sign. Ignored it. And within 6 months, that property was worth only 30% of what I paid for it, because a financial crash happened. None of it, well, unless somebody at the top knew there was a financial crash coming, but it wasn't common knowledge. There wasn't even any inkling in the market that there might be a financial crash. Otherwise, people wouldn't have been buying properties. And there were people queuing up to sign for properties at this point. But something in me knew, and it's this innate intelligence that if we get out of our own way and listen to that and allow it to come through us, we're fine. We're absolutely fine. We are very safe in life. And if we trust that something is going to stop us from going down that alleyway when we shouldn't, or signing for that property, or whatever, or throwing your sister in a load of seaweed, there is something that really kicks in. And I think as I was doing all my personal development, I thought, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I've experienced this before. Yes, I can totally trust myself. And I think having those experiences, and, I'll often say to people, have you had and they're like, oh, yeah. And then that helps them to go, oh, wait a minute, maybe I have that too. I mean, we all do. But most of us get so disconnected from it and try to control everything, and it's a joke for us to be in control of anything. We might make plans, but even on board, I'll make a plan for a flight and it never goes to plan. But I've sort of trust my inner wisdom to go, okay, see the big picture and what's needed in this moment, and bring my intuition in. So I'm bringing in a masculine structure of the flight, but bringing in the more feminine aspect, which whether we're male or female, we both have to balance this. It's that feminine intuitive part that is the go with the flow, with the, creating that feeling of ease and calm. That is the feminine aspect. Most of us, even being very feminine, it's very feminine centric, this role that I do. We bring in so much masculine into the cabin, and it actually can feel quite aggressive. Not that males are aggressive, but it's if we don't balance it with the feminine, it feels aggressive. And therefore, that's why people often, with all of their fancy training and skills, it just doesn't feel right. And many people just say, if I just do more training and just have more cabin skills, that'll give me more confidence. But it's kind of missing the point. If it has far better chance of landing on, has far more impact if it's landing on a solid foundation of what we personally bring to that role, because that's what's going to be felt, and everything else can kind of be received. It's like the icing on the cake. So yeah, so that's what I've seen in my experience, and that's what I love to teach people, that kind of miss that bridge, you know. And it works on board, it works in interviews, and funnily enough in real life when I remember to put it into practice.
Yeah, and completely, Heidi. We could be going on for hours. It's getting dark now.
Yes,
I know, it's ridiculous, but this is such an we're gonna have to reschedule for the next one, because you've just touched on another really, really interesting subject area, which I absolutely love, and that's the feminine and the masculine, the lunar, the solar, the yin and the yang, which we all have inside of us, and if we can develop either sides, it's brilliant, isn't it? They complement each other. There's none of this toxic masculinity and patriarchy versus the victim female side. We are working intrinsically. So we're going to come back and we're going to do this. We're going to do another one of these, okay? Because I think this is going to be really valuable. But I think we got to wind it up. So much stuff. I'm buzzing now. So much stuff. Freedom, inclusivity, of trusting ourselves, innate intelligence, intuition, all sorts of stuff, and just trusting the process. Absolutely brilliant. Wonderful mindset, creative mindset of thinking whatever happens, it's good enough. It's good enough. So thank you very much. And we just need to know where we can find you, where the listeners and the viewers can find you, because you have the ability to help so many people, and I probably want to find you. Where are you?
Yeah, it's a blessing. I'm online, basically. I live in London, but because I'm traveling so much and doing various things, thankfully we're blessed with being able to connect online, thankfully. And even the lady that changed my life is in Australia. I've never met her. But so living in London, but I tend to, when I'm not flying or when I've got time where I'm able to coach and what have you, then I'm online. So
cool. And what's the name of your website and your Instagrams, etc.?
Confidence in the Air, and on Instagram, Heidi Cole, Confidence in the Air, and LinkedIn, and also Facebook. But I'd say LinkedIn, Instagram are probably where I'm most active, really. So
brilliant, great. Well, okay, so we haven't actually met face to face yet, but
no, it feels like we have, though, right?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Because we're connected in that really positive way, and we're building this wonderful tribe together. I think that's one of the things I picked up on your website when I was doing a bit of research, is that the testimonials, there were so many good testimonials there about the fact that we're connecting to these incredible people, and it's just so important in this world of exclusivity now. Anyway, time to wind it up. It's the weekend. You've got to go and have a good time. I've got to go and have a good time with my kids and my friends and stuff. So thank you, Heidi. And
it's a pleasure.
Definitely see you soon.
Thanks. Take care.
So that's the wonderful Heidi Cole. Brilliant conversation, as every conversation I've had so far. I just really appreciate the openness and honesty of people like Heidi. I think it's a great message for all of us, isn't it? That we need to face up to the struggles, talk about our feelings, try and express them, find ways forward, because life is incredibly exciting and there is so much for us to achieve. We need to find ways to open ourselves up and find the very best of ourselves. It's wonderful, wonderful. So I'd love to hear your comments, as always. Please leave them below. Any reviews that you have would be seriously valued, and I really appreciate it. And until the next episode, I wish you all the very best, and please remember to keep it in the greens.